She was born on a night when two moons shone in the sky. This rare event only happened once every 100 years, and the village elders whispered that it was an omen. Adanna grew into a beautiful young woman with sparkling eyes and a laugh like tinkling bells. But she carried a secret. Adanna was born with two female parts instead of one. As a child, she didn't understand why she was different. She played with other children, climbed trees, and swam in clear streams just like everyone else. But as Adanna grew older, she began to notice worried looks and hushed conversations that stopped when she entered a room. On her 16th birthday, she learned the truth about her unique body and an ancient prophecy. This revelation turned her world upside down. Word spread quickly about Adanna's uniqueness, and people in the village began treating her differently. Some looked at her with awe, others with fear. Young men who once teased and played with her now avoided her gaze. Women whispered behind their hands when she walked by. Feeling alone and misunderstood, Adanna spent more time in the forest, finding comfort in the company of birds and animals who didn't judge her. It was during one of these solitary walks that she met Obinna, a kind-eyed boy from a neighboring village who wasn't afraid of her at all. As Adanna and Obinna grew closer, strange things began happening in the village. Crops withered overnight, streams dried up, and children fell ill with a mysterious fever. Many blamed Adanna, believing she had brought a curse upon them. Adanna struggled with guilt and confusion. She wanted to help her people but didn't know how. Some nights, she would wake up in a cold sweat, her two female parts tingling with a strange energy she couldn't understand. Despite Obinna's support, Adanna felt increasingly isolated in her own village. Children ran away when they saw her coming. Adults crossed to the other side of the path to avoid her. Even her own parents seemed unsure how to act around her. One day, while bathing in a secluded stream, Adanna discovered that she could make the water move with just her thoughts. Was this part of her curse, or could it be a gift? She practiced in secret, learning to create tiny whirlpools and make water droplets dance in the air. As her powers grew, so did the troubles in the village. The elders held secret meetings, discussing what to do about Adanna. Some suggested sending her away, while others thought a traditional cleansing ritual might help. Torn between her love for her village and the fear of causing more harm, Adanna considered running away. But where would she go? And what about Obinna? Could she leave him behind? One stormy night, as Adanna lay awake listening to the rain, she heard a commotion outside. Peering through a crack in the wall, she saw a group of villagers approaching her family's hut, carrying torches and looking angry. Her heart racing, Adanna knew she had to make a decision. Should she face the villagers and try to explain, use her newfound water powers to defend herself, or slip away into the night, leaving everything and everyone she'd ever known behind? As the angry voices grew louder and the torchlight flickered ominously, Adanna's two female parts began to tingle with energy. She felt a power building inside her, unlike anything she'd experienced before. What would happen if she let it out? And how would it change her life and the lives of everyone in the village forever? Adanna's heart pounded as she watched the angry villagers draw closer. With trembling hands, she quickly packed a small bag with some food and a change of clothes. Just as she was about to slip out the back of the hut, she heard a soft tap on the window. It was Obinna, his eyes wide with concern. "I heard what's happening," he whispered. "Come with me. I know a safe place." Without hesitation, Adanna took his hand and they disappeared into the dark forest just as the villagers reached her family's hut. As they ran, guided by the faint moonlight filtering through the trees, Adanna could hear shouts of anger and confusion behind them. They ran for what felt like hours, the sounds of the village fading away. Finally, Obinna led Adanna to a hidden cave behind a waterfall. As they caught their breath, Adanna felt a strange connection to the rushing water. It seemed to be calling to her, whispering secrets she couldn't quite understand. We'll be safe here for now, Obinna said, squeezing her hand. But what will we do next? Adanna didn't have an answer. She was scared, confused, and felt more alone than ever, despite Obinna's presence. As dawn broke, she sat by the edge of the pool formed by the waterfall, letting her feet dangle in the cool water. To her amazement, the water began to swirl around her legs, forming intricate patterns. Obinna watched in awe. Adanna, how are you doing that? She shook her head, equally amazed. I don't know, it just happens. Over the next few days, Adanna practiced controlling the water. She learned to create shapes, move small streams, and even pull moisture from the air. Obinna encouraged her, convinced that this gift was meant for something important. But their peace was short-lived. One morning, they woke to the sound of voices nearby. The villagers had tracked them down. As panic set in, Adanna felt a surge of power coursing through her body, centered in her two female parts. Obinna, she said, her voice surprisingly calm. I think I know what I have to do. She stepped out of the cave, facing the group of villagers who looked both angry and afraid. Taking a deep breath, Adanna raised her hands. The waterfall behind her froze in mid-air, droplets suspended like diamonds in the sunlight. The villagers gasped, taking a step back. Please, Adanna said, her voice carrying over the suddenly silent forest. Let me explain. As she spoke, the water around her danced and swirled, creating beautiful, impossible shapes. She told them about her fears, her struggles, and her newfound abilities. She spoke of the prophecy and her desire to help, not harm, her people. The villagers listened, their anger slowly turning to wonder. But not everyone was convinced. An elder stepped forward, his face stern. How do we know this power won't bring destruction? He demanded. Just then, a child in the group cried out in pain. He had been bitten by a venomous snake hidden in the undergrowth. Without thinking, Adanna rushed forward, her hands glowing with a strange blue light. She placed her palms over the bite and, to everyone's amazement, drew out the venom like drawing water from a well. The child's pain eased immediately, and the villagers murmured in astonishment. Adanna stood, suddenly feeling dizzy from the effort. As she swayed, Obinna was there to support her. The elder who had questioned her now looked at Adanna with new eyes. Perhaps, he said slowly, this is the power of healing our village has been waiting for. But even as a sense of hope filled the air, dark clouds began to gather overhead. A cold wind whipped through the trees, carrying with it the scent of an approaching storm. Adanna felt a chill run down her spine. Something told her that this was no ordinary weather. As lightning crackled in the distance, she realized that explaining her power to the villagers was just the beginning. A much bigger challenge was coming, one that would test not only her abilities but also her heart. What was causing this sudden storm? And how would Adanna's unique gift play a role in what was to come? As rain began to fall, she squared her shoulders, ready to face whatever lay ahead. As the storm intensified, Adanna felt a strange pull within her body. Her two female parts tingled with energy, responding to the wild weather around them. The villagers huddled together, looking to her with a mixture of hope and fear. We need to find shelter, Obinna shouted over the howling wind. But as they turned to leave, a brilliant flash of lightning struck a massive tree nearby, splitting it in two. The falling trunk blocked their path back to the village. Without thinking, Adanna raised her hands. To everyone's amazement, she pulled water from the rain-soaked air, forming it into a giant, shimmering bubble around the group. The rain and wind battered against it but couldn't break through. How long can you hold this? An elder asked, his voice filled with awe. I don't know, Adanna admitted, her arms shaking with effort. As they stood protected in the bubble, strange things began to happen. The storm seemed to take on a life of its own. Lightning danced across the sky in unnatural patterns. The rain fell upwards instead of down. In the distance, they could see trees uprooting themselves and walking on their roots. Suddenly, a voice boomed from the heart of the storm. It was deep and ancient, speaking in a language Adanna had never heard before. Yet somehow, she understood every word. "Daughter of two moons," the voice said, "your time of testing has come." The villagers looked at Adanna in confusion, but she stood tall, facing the storm. "What do you mean?" she called out. "Who are you?" A figure began to form in the swirling clouds, a woman made of mist and lightning. She had two faces, one kind and one stern. "I am the spirit of the land," she said. "Long ago, I blessed this forest with abundance. But the people grew greedy and forgot to give thanks. Now the balance must be restored." The spirit pointed at Adanna. "You, child, with your dual nature, have the power to bridge the gap between the human world and the spirit world. But first, you must prove yourself worthy." Adanna felt Obinna's hand slip into hers, giving her strength. "What must I do?" she asked.